Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I just wanted to share something with you real quick about another good reason why you should wrap your jars when you're freezing anything in them. The main reason I do this is to protect them from getting cracked when they're sitting next to each other in the freezer, whether it be in the door or in the slider on our chest freezer. So I started a couple years ago wrapping my jars like this because I made the mistake of, when we were getting goat's milk from a friend, freezing the excess milk that she would give us and just sticking it into the freezer. But then when I would go to move the slider around, the jars would end up smacking against each other. And of course your jars get very brittle once they're frozen, and it would cause them to crack. And then not only did I lose the jars, I lost the milk as well. I think I lost a total of 3 quarts doing that. Oh, I was mad. But I learned a lesson and I started wrapping my jars. Now, if you're interested in what I freeze and how I freeze in jars, I do have a video about that, because there are some steps you need to take that's very important that will, besides just wrapping, that will help prevent your jars from cracking during the freezing process. So I'm going to go ahead and link to that video in the description box down below. Don't forget to click on either show more or that little gray triangle if you're on a smart device to open it up so you can find the video links and anything else that we share down there. Now back to the main reason I'm doing this video, and that is the other good reason why you should wrap your jars. Now you could even consider doing this for your jars for your canned goods and putting them into storage, because one good thing it will do as far as storage goes, if you're willing to do all that, keep in mind it's going to make the jars take up more room, but it'll also prevent light from getting in for the things that you're putting on a shelf. But as far as freezing goes, and I always knew this, but until today I didn't realize just how effective it was. So what I have here are 2 jars of broth. This is a vegetable broth I made, I think back in 2016 or 2017, I forgot about. And then here's a jar of turkey broth. Now when I have excess broth made up, I prefer to freeze it because I usually don't have enough at a time for me to want to can it. I might can it this year though. This jar is from 2017, so I was going to use both of these in a meal that I'm making, so I pulled them out at the same time. Now the turkey broth was wrapped in the flannel. So now there's many ways you can wrap your jars. Some people like to use old socks, maybe socks that have holes in them in the bottom and you're not going to wear them anymore. And instead of darning them, you can recycle them to use as jar covers. That's one excellent way to do it. My preferred way is to take some old flannel sheets. We'll find flannel whenever we go garage sailing and we see any flannel sheets of any kind. We grab them up because they have so many uses. I love flannel and it's cheap. You can get 50 cents, you get a big sheet, and you can do so much with it. So anyway, I like to double it over, and then I just wrap it around my jar like this. You can go single. I just wrap it for however big I cut it, and then I'll take another piece that I ripped off into a strip and just tie it like that. And then that's how that goes into my freezer and sits next to each other. As you can see with this jar I was holding up earlier, this is the apple, some of the apple juice I froze up from last year that we got from our apples when I was pressing and making a lot of apple cider. I decided I didn't want to can it because I liked the flavor of it fresh so much that I wanted to leave it raw. So that is why I chose to freeze it. So anyway, when I pulled these out, because this one I think was put in there before I started wrapping the jars in the flannel, and so it was still sitting in there, but I made sure it was between other jars that were already wrapped, and I pulled them both out at the same time. This one I took immediately in and put right next to the fireplace so it would thaw out, and I planned on coming back in because I had my hands full of something else, and I planned on coming back in and grabbing this one and putting it next to the fireplace too, but I totally forgot about it. So I set this one by the fireplace as is, because I was doing, it's like one of those things where you're doing so many things at once, and so you're kind of scatterbrained and you do a little bit here, a little bit there. That's sort of what was going on. And so I just set this like this. Again, I was also meaning to take the wrap off of here. Well, forgot about them for a couple hours. Well, when I went to check on them both, this one sitting here in the kitchen was halfway thawed out at the time. It was unwrapped, but sitting about as far away as it could get from the fireplace. This one was still wrapped in the flannel, sitting right next to the fireplace, and was only thawed out a little bit. It was still mostly frozen. What my point is in that is, even with this sitting right next to the fireplace, with the flannel wrapped around it like this, it kept it well insulated. So that is what was taking it so long to thaw out, even though it was right close to the fireplace. So when it comes to freezing your jars, by protecting them this way to keep them from cracking, you're also insulating them. So that way, if you have a power outage or your freezer gives out for some reason, just up and dies on you, by having your jars wrapped like this is going to keep them frozen for a much longer period of time, on top of the fact that they're in there with other things that are frozen. And you keep your freezers full too. That's really important. So even if you don't have enough food to fill up your freezer, at least find bottles, old plastic bottles that you can fill up and stick in there and let them freeze, so that fills up the space. So not only does it make your freezer run more efficiently, it's also going to keep your things cold or even frozen for a much longer period of time if you lose power. So that's why I wanted to share this little tip real quick with you on wrapping your jars whenever you're freezing goods in jars like this. And I suppose the same would apply for anything that you decide to put into food saver bags or Ziploc bags. Consider wrapping them, or even at least sticking them inside of boxes or paper bags, because even down in a paper bag will also help to insulate those goods, to keep them frozen for a longer period of time. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed my helpful tip. Any other tips you guys have to share about anything that has to do with food storage, or storing stuff in your freezer, or whatever it is, go ahead and share those down below. I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy, especially new people coming into food storage, reading what you have to say. All right, well, thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.